Devils Like to Dance, Chapter 6, Solving Puzzles and Education. Over the next few days, Ciel Phantomhive sat at his desk trying to figure out where the killer will strike next. Each body was found approximately a month and a half apart, so that gives him some time in order to do so. In the meantime, he has instructed the authorities to look for witnesses who may have seen any suspicious persons in that time frame. On his desk, he had a map with the locations of each of the previous crime scenes marked with a dot. The brunette sighed and leaned back in his chair. He had looked through that puzzle book countless times and still can't make a connection to any location. It just doesn't make sense, he thought. What does this book have to do with this map? It was a certain blonde that pulled him from his thoughts. Ciel, I'm bored, he whined. Aloise, I'm busy. Go read a book or something. The more serious of the two rubbed his head in response. The fair-haired lad waltzed over to the desk and sat on it. I don't want to read. It's boring. Reading isn't boring. You just haven't found a book that interests you. And get off my desk. Doubt it. Aloise paused for a moment and added, Why? Do my shorts still bother you? He hit the nail on the head. There was something about those damn shorts that seemed to bother Ciel. Boys should not show that much leg, regardless of the reason, in Ciel's mind. That's part of it, he said. I also don't appreciate your arse all over my desk. The blonde's mouth twisted into a smirk. He then proceeded to rub his buttocks against the desk. What's that? You really shouldn't mumble, you know. I couldn't understand a word you just said. Stop that. Go find something to do other than bothering me. I'm busy. The brunette stood up and shouted. Busy with what exactly? It looks like you're sitting here staring into space. I was trying to find out how this puzzle book relates to that map. Aloise stood there for a moment, inspecting the map. It looks like the game you showed me. Sudoku? You mean Sudoku, and I don't see how. Aloise picked up the puzzle book and flipped it to a page with a Sudoku puzzle on it. Look, the grid on the map looks like the grid on the puzzle. He pointed to a dot that was labeled with the number 1, the number of the first victim, and the number that was found in the suitcase with him. These numbers here, they look like the given ones in the puzzle. Ciel just stared at him, mouth slightly open in disbelief. He looked at the map, then he looked at the puzzle and back again, and then it hit him. Aloise was right. How on earth did you... Aloise shrugged and put the book on the desk. Don't know, it just came to me. Ciel remembered the number 9 drawn on the bodies. Then the number 9 must relate here somehow. Could it be? What? Ciel looked at the Aloise and said, the number of total victims there will be. Then what happens after they reach 9? I have no idea, he began. But whatever it is, it can't be good. I can't believe I'm saying that. But Aloise, you're brilliant. Aloise smiled smugly and took a bow. Thank you. I know I'm awesome. Feel free to tell me more. Now, if only you knew how to read. The blonde ceased his posing and looked at the boy behind the desk. I do, too, know how to read. You bloody midget cyclops. Ciel furrowed his eyebrows in frustration and clutched his eye patch. I am not a midget. I'm only 13 centimeters shorter than you. His face suddenly starting to resemble a tomato. Funny how you know the exact differences between our heights, Aloise teased. That's rather odd, Ciel. Are you that touchy about your height? It was at that point that the Phantomhive boy lost his temper. He reached across the desk and forced Aloise over to him, causing papers, books, and writing utensils to fall off the desk onto the floor. The boy's head was now trapped under the more petite one's arms, his scalp being assaulted by Ciel's fist being ground against it. Yes, Ciel. Yes, Ciel had given him his first noogie. Ow, 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 stop it, cried the blonde, trying to wrestle his way to freedom. But Ciel was simply not having it. I may be shorter than you, but I can still kick your arse. Aloise had not anticipated this. Ciel was usually so calm, cool, and collected. Never had the reanimated boy have suspected that he would resort to violence. Let go. Fine, said the Queen's noble watchdog as he released the spider. But I still don't believe you can read. Aloise rubbed his now pain-ridden cranium. I can read, and I can prove it, he yelled indignantly. All right, then. Ciel walked towards the bookshelf and selected a book. Read this. He tossed it to the ever-so-defiant blonde. He caught the book in his hand and swallowed. You mean right now? Ciel scoffed in response and said, Yes, right now. And read it aloud so I can hear you. Ever determined to prove himself, Eloise looked at the cover of the book. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was its title. He turned to the first page, cleared his throat, and began. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Lived. He began slowly. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or Mr. Eloise scrunched his brow in frustration as he continued to stumble over the word. He became even more so when Ciel walked over to read the book over his shoulder. You mean mysterious, he corrected. I know that, said the blonde objectively. Mr. Dursley was the director, Ciel corrected again. I know what it says, Eloise said, flustered by the fact that he has trouble reading. But that's to be expected of a former street rat. The only education he had received had been from Claude Faustus, his former butler, in the short while he had lived as a trancy. Really, it was quite surprising he knew how to read as well as he could. All right, so you can read, Ciel said, but your reading level is still unacceptable. Is there anything else you don't know? Can you even find Britain on a globe? Eloise blushed and looked at the floor, ashamed that he, in fact, could not. No, he mumbled. The brunette was legitimately surprised by that. This boy in front of him, who had just potentially cracked the code to locating a serial killer's next target, a thing Ciel himself could not do, cannot find the very country he lives in and was expected to serve on a globe. Obviously, we have some work to do, he said, rubbing his forehead. It appears as though I have to catch a Sudoku killer and somehow provide you a proper education. He looked up at Eloise. First things first, I need to solve this puzzle. I would try to assist, but I'm obviously too dumb for this sort of thing. You aren't dumb, Ciel said, much to the blonde's surprise. You just haven't learned yet. Eloise suddenly felt so much brighter at those words. He gave the shorter boy his biggest smile and said, So how can I help then? It's simple, began the more composed of the two. We play Sudoku. Boring. I'm out. Get your ass back in here. Chapter 7. Jim, Jimmy, Jimbo. Solved. The puzzle that had so obnoxiously stood in the way between the authorities and a serial killer was finally removed. Or was it? There were multiple ways to solve the Sudoku puzzle, and there were no certainty that the case had anything to do with Sudoku at all. Naturally, this had occurred to our boys. The solution they had come up with for now solved the puzzle in as many ways as possible. However, in order to do this effectively, they needed help. Ciel was, of course, working on this as well as the trancy boy. They had recruited the help of several constables and even Sebastian. One would think that our favorite raven-haired butler would be able to do this all on his own, but the fact remains that this is not humanly possible. There are a select few who know the true nature of the Phantom Hive estate. They know the story, the legend, but a few mere police constables, however, do not. Sebastian, who could probably solve this entire mystery on his own, was instructed not to. Anything to attract any unwanted attention to themselves was strictly taboo. Therefore, the servant was only limited to solve less than even a handful of Sudoku puzzles. Granted, he doesn't particularly mind. If he cannot do this to keep his master's secrets, then what kind of butler would he be? Our favorite blonde, however, felt thoroughly useless. He has yet to solve even one puzzle, and was starting to get very, very frustrated. What is with this? He cried. Why is this so hard? I hate Sudoku. Whoever this killer is, he will pay dearly for forcing me to play this bloody game. Calm down, you're so noisy, said the boy's friend, who was sitting at his desk. It probably doesn't help if you sit upside down. You aren't getting enough blood to your brain. The blonde was lying on the couch in the petite Phantom Hive's office on his back. with his legs in the air, resting on the back of the couch. He had his Sudoku grid clipped to magazine as a hard surface. Ciel could be right. This is no way to solve a puzzle. But this is hard, and it's boring, whined the blonde with a ludicrous position. Hard like your couch here. My arse hurts from sitting on it normally. You offered to help, if memory serves. The flaxen-haired boy grunted while making an attempt to right himself in the seat. Could you at least fluff your cushions? Nope. Ciel's response was plain, simple, and to the point. He never even looked up from his own puzzle. Eloise had always found it interesting how he used his words and movements so efficiently. The same Eloise who was constantly playing around and dancing around the point just for the sake of his own amusement. These mannerisms Ciel would bring were naturally forgiven to the trancy boy due to this. Eloise dwelled on this, and a few moments before another thought popped into his head, as it often goes. Hey, Ciel, he said, there are a lot of sevens on these charts. How are we going to investigate them all? Again, he had pointed out something Ciel had already thought of. However, this plan takes a lot of manpower and will be troublesome to put into action. The Phantom Hive boy looked up from his puzzle for a moment to look at Eloise. We'll need multiple investigators to perform surveillance on the locations that someone actually lives in. We can rule out anything other than homes on the map. What about hotels? The killer obviously planned this out thoroughly. He probably staked the place out more than once. People don't usually stay in hotels very long, so it would be safe to assume that the killer wouldn't risk trying to kill someone without knowing things such as their schedule, the most likely layout of their house, etc. I see. Eloise paused for a moment to look down at the map on the Earl's desk, then looked back up to Ciel. Hey, Ciel, are you a serial killer? He asked in a joking tone. Only sometimes, he joked back. This was not entirely untrue, however, as demons need to acquire souls somehow. It's quite easy to forget how really dangerous Ciel has the potential to be. No one would ever suspect that the small, delicate-looking boy before the young blonde's eyes could very well snap you in two had he the desire to do so. Eloise knows this. However, it is most often in the back of his mind. Ciel is his only friend. He trusts Ciel. And although he knew the boy would never admit to this aloud, he knew that it was the same for Ciel as well. He smiled to himself at this. We may have to pitch in as well and go on surveillance duty, added the slate-haired boy. Sounds like fun. Oh, that reminds me. Ciel looked away to open a drawer in his desk. He reached inside and pulled out a cell phone. I've been meaning to give you this. You'll need it, he said, handing the small device to the blonde who was currently on the verge of dancing. Oh my God, really? I can have this? Said the blonde, clutching his amazing new device. Yes, that's why I got it in the first place. It's hard to function nowadays without one. Just don't give your number out to random people. Ciel was interrupted by the blonde who was suddenly hugging him. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're the best. The Phantom Hive boy tried to wrestle his way out of this, but to no avail. Unhand me. I don't like hugs. I said let go. You like it. Bam. Oof. Eloise was promptly punched in the gut. He let go in order to clutch his now pained stomach. That's what you get, Ciel said, straightening himself. I need to make a phone call, so please keep it down. Fine, said the blonde, landing on the couch with an obnoxious thud. Thank you. Ciel dialed the police station to convey his plan to Detective Constable Bailey. What? Bailey, however, was not impressed. You expect me to put out that many men for one case? He said over the phone. It's just one case, said the boy, adjusting his eye patch. It's a series of related cases. That's why it's called a serial murder. Ciel could hear Detective Bailey sigh in defeat on the other end of the call. Fine, I'll do it. Thank you very much. I'll fax you the key later. All right, I'll send some people to the possible locations. This better be good, kid. Don't call me kid. Click. Ciel hung up the phone in a huff. He does not like being called a kid, especially since he's much older than most of the inhabitants of the city, including Detective Bailey. Ha 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 ha! The blonde laughing on the couch, again upside down, giggled. He called you kid. Ha ha ha. Shut up, Jim. No one asked for your question. The blonde sat up. He does not like being called by his old name. The name Jim isn't nearly as cool sounding as Eloise, in his opinion. Not nearly flamboyant or flashy enough for his taste. Don't call me Jim. Jimmy, then. No. Jimbo? No.